right, so ready for part 36? Are we ready? All right, great. Heart of the Matter, part 36. This is also Ezekiel part 2. Ezekiel part 2. Okay, so we're going to start in chapter 13. Okay, we're going to start in chapter 13. And we're going to read pretty much, I think, the whole chapter here. Let me just see where I'm going. Yep. So we're going to read most of this chapter here. The heart becomes an issue in 3 of the verses, in verse 2, 17, and 22. But let's go ahead and start here in chapter 13 and verse 1. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel who prophesy, and say to those who prophesy out of their own heart, hear the word of Yahweh. Okay, now this has been a theme in Ezekiel. We also saw this is the same thing in Jeremiah, where, now pay attention now, here is an anointed, appointed, called prophet who is specifically instructed to go and prophesy against the other ones who are teaching falsely or prophesying falsely. Now, by the way, when he says prophesy against them, what does prophecy mean again? It means to speak the word of Yahweh with authority. Inspired speaking with authority. Okay, so he's not prophesying saying, speak to them what their future holds, and like get out your mirrored ball and your tea leaves. He's saying, prophesy against them. Speak to them so they know what is going to happen to them, what Yahweh feels about what they're doing. Speak what Yahweh has said with authority. So he says, prophesy, because they prophesy out of their own heart, saying, hear the word of Yahweh. Ooh, they're prophesying out of their own hearts. And see, this is the challenge that's out there for all of us. We have an abundance of people out there, quote unquote, claiming they're prophesying. They don't use the word prophecy. They just claim that they're speaking the word of Yahweh with authority. And they're out there with YouTubes and blogs and vlogs, and websites and all these other things. And yet, do they really actually speak the word of Yahweh with authority? Have they been given that authority? And how do we know? Because clearly, if we look at not only this chapter, but in all the other places we've been reading up to this point, Yahweh does not appreciate people speaking out of the abundance of their own heart and claiming it's Him. And so we have to be really careful. And part of the way you can see that is you can see, I don't know how the best way to word this, look for the emotional strength behind what people are saying as opposed to the just conviction. When you sense that somebody is very emotionally involved and you can feel that content, most of the time that's out of their own heart. Because they have a personal angst about the thing. They have a personal commitment to that above and beyond just because Yahweh said it. Not all the time. I'm saying a lot of the time you'll notice. You see that a lot with the calendar issues. You see that a lot with this Melchizedekian thing. You see a lot now with this flat earth thing. You see that the people that are doing the teachings are not just teaching it with authority in a kind of a straightforward, unemotionally driven way. You don't see that at all. You see people very emotional. They have it's important to them that you agree with them or because they'll be upset about it otherwise. And you see that by the response when people post something as a teaching like on Facebook, and then people then say, well, I don't really necessarily agree with you, and they get nasty back. And so we have to be careful because a lot of the teachers out there are very emotionally bound because it's out of their heart that they're teaching these issues. Now, I'm hoping that when I teach that I'm not doing this, that I'm doing is I'm trying to teach what's out of His heart to get you to be in line with His heart. And so I try to just pull out of it where He's trying to communicate to you and strengthen, because I can put a voice to it, His words so that it's in your hearing and it gains the strength from my being able to put sound to it, okay, and emphasis to it, and maybe connect other verses to it. But here he's saying, look, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel who prophesy, and say to those who prophesy out of their own heart, hear the word of Yahweh. So saying, they're prophesying out of their own heart. And he's saying, look, no. Hear the word of Yahweh. Don't just prophesy out of your heart. Thus said the Master Yahweh, woe to the foolish prophets who are following their own spirit without having had a vision. Now, let's understand that doesn't necessarily mean that they actually saw something. A vision doesn't actually have to be a physically manifested where they actually saw visually something. It means they were given the insight and the guidance from above to take a group of people or to do something and take it in a particular direction. It's like someone says, I had a vision for, like a filmmaker will say, I had a vision for the way this movie would come out. I have a vision as a politician for how I would lead this country or I would lead a city. I have a vision for as a man talking to a woman that I want to marry. I have a vision for what our life would be in the future as a husband and wife and family. You know, you have to have a vision. Well, the question is it your vision or is it his vision? And so, no problem having a vision. We all have an idea of how we'd like things to be. That's our vision for it. When you are involved in something and you see the way you think it should go and the way it should come out and the way it should be handled, that's basically your vision for that project or situation. But is it in line with his vision? And that's the problem is when we are not in line with his vision and others have their own different visions, that's when you get division. Okay? Division, diverse. You get these multiple visions trying to go forward. You wonder why we don't have unity? Because we have all this multiplicity of visions. Unity only comes through being behind a single vision. Now, if you've ever tried to work on a project with somebody and we had different visions, you know how hard that was. Husbands and wives, if you've not had the same vision about certain things that were happening in your relationship or in the family, then what did you have? Strife, conflict, problems, issues. There's no unity. Unity is only when everybody is working towards the same vision. Now, what's happening here is that these are the prophets who are claiming to be prophets of Israel. In other words, they are members of the community called Israel, and they're calling themselves prophets. They're prophesying. They don't mean that they're necessarily the prophets of Yahweh. These are the prophets of Israel. These are those claiming to have vision, and they're claiming a false vision. He said, thus said Yahweh, woe to you foolish prophets who are following their own spirit without having had a vision. Now we said without having had a vision, that's saying they don't have a vision of their own. They haven't had a vision from him. Now we see that Ezekiel is often talking about how he's taken through the Yahweh's vision and he actually is experiencing it. He's seeing it. Yahweh works with Ezekiel in that way. He actually has him. He doesn't work that way with every prophet. This particular prophet, he works through vision. He literally takes him to go look at and see and experience a bunch of stuff. So he has that idea of a vision, clarity of has the clarity of the vision that Yahweh's talking about. Now he says here, O Yisrael, your prophets have been like foxes among ruins. This is verse 4. Now verse 5. You have not gone up into the breaches, nor do you build a wall for the house of Israel to stand in battle on the day of Yahweh. So what is he saying? He says, look, the people have been going along on this path for quite a while, and in doing so, they've allowed there to be breaches in the wall. In other words, there are things that are no longer being done the way they're supposed to be. And those breaches, they can get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like if you have one little thread coming out on a garment, and if it starts to unravel, the whole thing can unravel. Or you get a little tear in a garment, and if you don't fix it up right away, that hole gets bigger and bigger. He's saying, look, you've had all these breaches going on, and none of you guys has stood up to fix that. He says, you foolish prophets. He says, oh Israel, you've got prophets that are like foxes among ruins. He says, and what are the foxes doing among ruins? Think about what a fox is doing in the ruins. They're looking for easy prey. The foxes are going around and say, okay, there's ruins here, where there's probably an injured somebody around over there or something that I can go and take advantage of and eat and pounce on. Easy prey. He says, you have not gone up into the breaches. So there are breaches already. He goes, you have not gone up into those breaches, nor did you build a wall for the house of Israel to stand in battle on the day of Yahweh. So one of the jobs of not everybody, but leadership, specifically the leadership that's walking in the prophetic, and by walking in the prophetic, I'm not talking about as Christianity has taught you. I mean walking in anointed, inspired speaking. In other words, being able to take the word of Yahweh and to share it in a powerfully inspired way. He said, now, if you have that job, if you're called to that job, your job is to go and stand in those breaches. Like earlier when I was talking about tithing a little bit to you guys, like earlier when I talked about some of the rules about keeping the Passover, those are breaches that are out there. And when I say earlier, for those of you who are listening to this, that was not on recording, that was just part of our normal service time. But those are breaches that need to be stood up and put walls against, because that's where our walk is lacking, because people are thinking that, oh, this is okay to do because nobody stood against it. This is okay. This is an approved behavior because I see others doing it. See what a breach will do? In a garment, it's a hole that gets bigger and bigger, the tear. But in a group, the group watches people doing, especially if they're new, and they go, oh, I don't know how to do this, but I just saw so-and-so doing it. That must be the right way to do it. And then it ends up being duplicated and copied and duplicated and copied until everybody's doing error. Because after all, they learned it from watching. Here's it even worse. They learned it from the leadership behind the microphone. You know how that comes about? It comes about because you got a guy who had a microphone who was Pentecostal, or he was Baptist, or he's Methodist, or whatever he was, and he came to realize that, you know what, Sunday is not right. I need to move to Saturday, and I need to stop eating certain things and switch to holy days. But doctrinally, he's still whatever he was, and he keeps the microphone and keeps preaching, but now he's preaching on Saturday, and he's keeping feasts instead of Christmas and Easter, and now everybody thinks he must know what he's talking about. And so people come in, and they're now learning Messacostal, or Messabaptist. They're not learning Hebraic truth, Torah. They're learning it through the filter of a denomination. And the people coming in don't know that's what they're hearing. They're just hearing it, and they don't know that it's not correct. Because after all, they got these big things fixed up, right? We're now on Shabbat. We're not on Sunday. We're now doing the 7 feasts. The holy days, the 5 feast days, the 7 annual feasts on it, 7 annual Sabbaths on it. Okay? So we have all that going on. But what about all the other doctrinal positions? Understanding all of the other things that they learned in their seminaries, where they learned how to speak and teach Baptist or Methodist or Pentecostal or whatever other denomination, there's a million of them, Lutheran, it doesn't matter, fill in the blank. They learned how to teach that way of seeing things. Isn't that what you go to seminary to do? To learn how to come out and teach people to be whatever that seminary's denomination is. And so here, you've got people that have been going along for generations, and they've watered down and weakened their Torah observance, and so that all of Israel is just saying, but we're just following the leadership. And this is what the leadership is doing. And the leadership has said this is okay. The leadership has allowed this. Because in Israel, you see Jeremiah all upset because he walks around, he sees that there are vendors selling idols in Jerusalem. How did the leadership allow that? Now, what's a person to think who's now moved into Jerusalem and says, oh, it must be okay, they're allowing this? If you walk into, I've been to an MJA congregation, I'm not saying they're all this way, so I'm not attacking them, but the one I had gone to, they would sell you tickets for Passover on Shabbat. They would do other things that are not appropriate on Shabbat, and people who come there would just assume, well, it must be okay because they're doing it. The leadership is doing this, it must be okay. If you're a new person, how would you know any different? And so what Yahweh's saying here through Ezekiel is, look, and by the way, it's not just in Ezekiel's time, obviously I've been talking about our time. He's saying, look, there are foolish prophets out there, people that are fools who are still claiming to be speaking with authority. And by fools, I don't mean that I'm not trying to mock them. They just haven't gone and gotten re-educated yet. Instead of getting re-educated, they kept the mic. Or there was somebody that other groups never would have given a mic, but now with the public ease of YouTube and Facebook, they decided to take their own mic and establish themselves and self-anoint and self-appoint, and now they've got an audience. Because you can always find an audience. No matter what nonsense you want to teach, trust me, you'll find an audience. Because there'll be somebody out there that likes what you have to say because it matches up what's in their own heart, and so you'll find your audience. It may not be big, it may be huge, who knows? I could have literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people listening to me right now if I wanted to. All I'd have to do is change the message to what I know they want to hear. That's all I'd have to do. This place could be packed. I could have this place just rocking and packed. I'd have YouTube rocking and packed. I'd be wanted to speak everywhere because I could push all those buttons, no problem at all. But to what benefit? I wouldn't be standing in the breach. Yahweh's looking for those that would stand in the breach. And it's just like in Ezekiel 22 at the end of that chapter, and we're going to get to that eventually, not today. He says, I was looking for somebody to stand in the breach, and I couldn't find anybody. By the way, he's not talking about individuals. He's still talking about leadership. I'm looking for men in leadership to stand up and stand in the breach, to make a wall. Now, by the way, those of you who want to attack the Jewish leadership over the centuries after coming out of Babylon, they thought what they were doing with the Talmud was making a wall. Now, that's not to say it didn't get out of control and didn't go too far and didn't end up with some problems, but understand that there is a heart behind that. They were worried about this kind of condemnation. The idea of not making a wall, not filling the breach. And so they tried to make a wall with all of this Talmudic rules about things so that they would not have people breaking things. So that was their intent when they got started. Not all good intentions always end up in total fulfillment. Sometimes things get a little out of hand, and that's what happened with the Talmudic stuff. But just realize, I believe it was an attempt to do some of this. Because this is scathing the attacks that they're getting from the Almighty about the problems that they had and why they're going to end up in such trouble and why they're going to end up into captivity and all these kind of things. So they need to know, look, Yahweh is concerned with people not putting a protective wall around to make sure that they're guarding the commands. Okay, so it says here, verse 6, their visions are false and their divinations a lie, saying, thus declares Yahweh, when Yahweh has not sent them, yet they expected the word to be confirmed. How many people expected the blood moon thing to be confirmed? How many teachers out there they laid it all on the line with that. Sold the books, sold the videos, came out there sermon after sermon, and claimed Yahweh had given them the vision and the anointing to warn everybody about this blood moon thing, and nothing happened. So does that not prove them to be false? You bet it does. But is that going to stop anybody from following them? No, because people don't have the heart to know any better. And do I sound harsh? Yeah, I am harsh. Because that's what the word is saying here. Oh, but you don't understand. That person led me to Torah observance. I do understand. But I also understand that this is talking about those that are false and their divinations are lies, and they're declaring Yahweh had sent them and expected the word to be confirmed. See, that's the key of that verse. It's not just their claim, all the other things. They expected that word to be confirmed through an event happening with the blood moons that didn't happen. They expected it to be confirmed. It wasn't. Not by any measure that anybody can put out there. There's no spin you can put on that to say that anything of relevance. Oh, when the stock market started going down in September, here it is. You know, it's higher now than before all of that. Way higher. It's at new records. And then it goes down a little bit. It goes up. And I told everybody from my financial background, it was a normal course correction. That is normal when a market moves a certain speed in a certain direction, and that it would not be a problem. Remember that? But yet, it's this idea of confirmation. There's an expectation of the word being confirmed. Oh, but you guys will still listen to those guys and follow those guys. I don't know why. And it's not that I don't like those guys. I actually know some of them, and I was friends with them. I'm still friends with some of them. But they won't listen to me when I try to say, hey, listen, you messed this thing up. You can't be doing this stuff. You can't be naming dates and setting marks and claiming visions and lining things up and then have it not happen. Because a lot of people are making life-changing decisions. That's what he's talking about here in Ezekiel. People will make life-changing decisions based on what you are saying. There are people that are not taking jobs or not getting married or not having babies or selling their house and moving, all because of what these particular leaders taught. They're making life-changing decisions. And we talked about this in the past. And the children who are paying attention to what you're paying attention to, they're thinking, well, what do I have to look forward to? It's all over. After all, there's blood moons and everything else, and then the children have no motivation to actually grow up and do anything. Because after all, why? We're never going to get there anyway. You don't know. Every generation thinks it's them. For two reasons. One is, they want it to be. We do. especially as we get older and we've seen enough and we just said enough. Come now and end this crazy, obnoxious world that we live in. And it's an obnoxious world. It is noxious. It's just toxic and horrible. And we like, can we just be done already? The second reason is because every generation looks at their generation, looks at what's going on in their generation, and believes that it matches the prophetic symbolism that's talked about in Scripture about what the end times will look like. So every generation is trying to look at they take all their little knowledge of eschatology, end time study, and some people will say, well, you're insulting me. I've got a lot of eschatology study. Okay, fine. They take their lots of eschatology study, and every one of them over generations concluded it was going to be them. And they're all wrong. Now, eventually somebody will be right, but they've all been wrong. We need to be planning this out as if it's not us. It's another, our children may be the ones, or their children may be the ones. Oh, but you don't understand, Rabbi, we've already got to the 6,000 years. I don't see one verse that says that that's written in stone, that we have to get to the 6,000 years and then the millennium has to come. I don't see a single verse that Yahweh said that no matter what's going on in the world, at 6,000 years, I'm going to bring this about no matter what. There's no verse for that. There are verses that talk about unless the master shall tarry. That could be about this, although it may not be. Well, why would he tarry? I think it's because we're not ready. And so it's our fault, really. We're not ready. We're still playing with this. But ultimately, every generation thinks it's them. So sure, live your life like it is you, because it might be. I'm not saying it isn't. It certainly may well be us. And we should be living thinking it may be us. But we should be planning as if it's not. And stop just listening to everybody and anybody who's out there, and you may be just listening to a foolish prophet. You just very well may be listening to a foolish prophet. And how do you know? Because then people have to go, well, maybe you're the foolish prophet. Maybe. I'm sure those foolish prophets don't know they're being foolish prophets. So up to you to pray for discernment and to match up what I'm saying or anybody who speaks says against the word. And to see if there's any agenda in there. Hopefully all you see in my agenda is I'm trying to make sure that you have the best possibility of getting from where you are into the forever kingdom. That's all I care about. Now, of course, there are those that think the only way to get there is to have the right calendar. Well, the only way to get there is to have the right, and just keep filling in the blanks. It's foolishness. And that's why he calls them foolish prophets. He says, have you not seen verse 7, have you not seen a false vision, and have you not spoken a divination of lies? You say, Yahweh declares when I have not spoken. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh. By the way, they're out there every day, people saying, thus said Yahweh, when Yahweh hadn't said. The easiest way never to do that is to only say, thus said Yahweh, when you actually read, thus said Yahweh. Can we agree? That is the absolute guaranteed simplest way never to mess that up. The only time I ever say, thus said Yahweh, is when I can read him saying it. And I say, there it is. He said, thus said Yahweh. You shall not, you shall not, you shall. Okay? That's the only time I'm going to give you a thus said Yahweh. Can't get that one wrong, because then I'm reading you say it. He says, let's see. Verse 8, therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh, because you have spoken falsehood and seen lies, therefore, see, I am against you, declares the Master Yahweh. That should be really scary for the leadership out there. See, that's the problem that, nobody teaches this strong enough to these guys before they grab a mic. They should be scared to death about grabbing a mic. Oh, no, but they want the mic. Because you know why? They just see that, oh, that looks great. This is Nadab and Abihu time. Moses and Aaron just did this thing. They went in and they had their right. They had the incense and they went and they did. And Yahweh came down with this great fire. And so Nadab and Abihu decided, hey, that looks great. Let's go ahead and do that too. That's all these people are doing. They watch other ministries out there and go, oh, that looks great. I think it'd be wonderful to do this full time and to have people send me money and hit a donation button and be all popular on YouTube and whatever and speak at conferences. Oh, that looks great. Yeah, but do you think about and worry about what if your doing this thing? What if you're speaking falsehood and seeing lies? What if you're speaking out of the abundance of the vision out of your own heart? What if you don't really have the thus said Yahweh's correct? Are you not worried about hearing the words, I am against you? I mean, that's what he said. He says, because you have spoken falsehood and seen lies, therefore see, I am against you. That should scare the fill in the blank out of you. Whatever polite or impolite word you would stick in there, I don't care. That should scare the absolute biggest word you could put in there out of you. But it doesn't. People have no fear. They'll just grab a mic anyway, because it all looks fun and wonderful and everything like that. Well, no, you're the ones. He's not talking about the people here. He's talking to the leadership. Because the people are actually pleasing in his sight to some degree that they're being submissive to leadership. It's not their fault. They're following leadership. Now, what is their fault is when they are given enough understanding that they can vet that leadership and they haven't done it because they actually prefer the lies over the truth, then they're in trouble. But when you have a nation led by only lies, and that's all you know, now we have a problem. That's why these guys, Ezekiel, you see Jeremiah doing it, you see, they're yelling at the top of their lungs at who? The leadership. You are causing the people to stumble. You are causing them to sin. You are leading them into death. You are causing this dispersion that's going to come and happen. The leadership. Okay? Let's see. Verse 9, my hand shall be against the prophets who see falsehood and who divine lies. They shall not be in the counsel of my people, nor be written in the record of the house of Israel, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am the Master Yahweh. Those people are in big trouble. And by the way, when it says this idea of divining lies, I have to say this with a lot of strength of emphasis. They don't necessarily have the slightest even thought that they're divining a lie. I don't want us to read into this that they're doing this with malice. They could be, look, I know a lot of you have been to a lot of really, different churches all over the place before you ever came into this. And I know you had pastors and elders in those churches who absolutely were wonderful people and believed every word that they taught with all of their heart and with all their strength. They had no thought that they were sharing lies. That's what Yahweh's saying here. He said, look, I don't want you to think that this is necessarily with malice. The problem with the malice is that they want to prophesy out of their own hearts because they'd rather have what they're seeing there and they're filtering than what Yahweh's actually saying. And so their bias of that self-voice, remember we talked about the three voices in your head, right? Yours, Hasatan's, and the Father's. Well, that voice of yours, which has your preferences, I like, I don't like, I want, I don't, why is this, why is that? That voice, your preferences, can skew your vision. It will bias how you read Scripture. And I promise you, if you want to read the Bible and just pick and choose how you want, you can find a justification for everything you could possibly want to do just about. If you're willing to take only the verses that are not, remember, if you take all the verses, you can't argue because the verses all say something together. But if you're going to pick and choose verses out of context, you can have this book say anything you want. You can. Because like the Sunday church people that are doing all they're doing, they base it on their understanding of the same book you're using. And they use verses to justify that. You know that because whenever you talk to your Christian friends, they throw all those verses right at you. Oh, but in Galatians, oh, but in Ephesians, oh, but over here, oh, but, right? And they believe that with all their heart. And that's the problem. And so that's where discipleship comes in. That's where you actually are willing to go under and find yourself an anointed, appointed, and pray, Abba, show me someone who's actually just teaching the word what it really does say, and then be open to receive it whether you like it or not. Can you really honestly say, I want the truth whether I like it or not? Whether I prefer or I'm comfortable with it or it's what I want. I want the truth whether I like it or not, because the I is what gets in all the way. That's why this is all being read and we're talking about the heart, because the heart is the problem. It's out of the abundance of the heart that all that I comes out of. I like, I don't like. Why do I have to do that? That's not fair. I don't want to have to do that. I should be able to do this. Blah, 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 blah. Stop already. Right? And this is why we don't when we should. And this is why we shouldn't. This is why we do when we shouldn't and we don't when we should. We should do something we don't. Why? Because we really don't want to. And the things that we do that we shouldn't, well, because we really wanted to do it. And stop blaming the enemy for all of that. Sure, the enemy probably encouraged you to do it, but he wouldn't have encouraged you to do it if you didn't want to do it. You've got tons of stuff that you want to do that's enough for him to work with, that he doesn't need to have everything. I've said this a million times. If you've never had a problem with alcohol, he's never going to push you to become an alcoholic. Okay, if you never had a problem with stealing or kleptomania, wanting to have other people's stuff, he's never going to tempt you to steal stuff. Because it's not your particular thing. He's going to only encourage you about the stuff that you do want to do. The stuff you like, the stuff that makes you feel good, the stuff that's all about you. And you are not me. You are not her. She is not him. He is not her. You know what I'm saying? We're all individual. We all have our own stuff. And Abba's going to allow the enemy, notice how I said that? Abba is allowing, because everything that happens he causes or allows, he allows the enemy to work with you to expose all of that stuff, that ugly, yucky stuff that's you, to get it out so that you can deal with it. And guess what? Once you've dealt with it, the enemy doesn't push it anymore. He's going to find another thing to push because you're no longer interested anymore. When you stop wanting the thing that you keep doing, the enemy will stop pushing and you'll stop doing it. It's just like anybody that ever quit cigarettes. Until you actually didn't really want them anymore, you weren't going to quit. You tried to quit. I talk to people all the time that quit and people that fail to quit. And it's only one simple difference in all of them. Until they wanted it, it didn't happen. Now, intellectually, they may say, I want to quit. No. I'm saying here in the heart, where you no longer want that thing. Where that thing is now reprehensible, disgusting, I don't want it, it's offensive to you personally, you will stop. Not because it's logic for you to stop, not because it's rational for you to stop, no, because you actually don't want to do it anymore. Is this making sense? Every single thing we do, I don't care what it is, and you can argue with me all you want, that sin is because you wanted to do it. I'm sorry to be blunt. That goes for me too. Anything that I do that doesn't match up is because I have an inner, deep core something that still wants to do it. You don't do that stuff by accident. Okay? The accidental stuff is like when you accidentally, this has happened to me more than once on Days of Unleavened Bread. I happened to be in a place where I didn't have an assembly to go to. I went to work during the week, and somebody pulled out some donuts. They brought them to work, and I picked one up, stuck it in my mouth, and was like, ah! Because you just forget sometimes that's accidental, okay? And you catch it immediately, and then you realize you just got distracted. That's accidental. But you don't commit adultery accidentally. You don't steal accidentally. You don't murder accidentally. You know what I'm saying? These are not accidental stuff. You don't break the Shabbat generally accidentally. If you decide that you want to go to a restaurant or you want to do this, these are choices you make because what you wanted conflicted with what he wanted, and you were going to win out instead of him. That's not submission. We're going to have a real battle over this submission thing at some point when I actually get into teaching more of the men's disciples or women's disciples and stuff that I want to put on public record. And let's understand, and I've said this last week or maybe the other week, submission doesn't come into play until you don't agree with the one you're supposed to submit with. Let's make that clear. Submission never, ever happens until you and the one you're submitting to are in disagreement. So as long as you're walking along the way and you agree with everything Yahweh says, that's not submission. That's agreement. Which, by the way, is good too. It's good to walk in agreement. Two don't walk together unless they agree, right? They have to have an agreement on how they're going to walk together. So it's good that you agree and you walk together. But see, the submission part, when he wants you to be submissive to him, comes when he says no and you say, but I want to anyway. Now, you submit only if you don't do it. And you let him win. If you're going to spin what he said to justify you doing it, now you're in double trouble. Not only didn't you listen, but now you tried to justify that he was okay with it. That's kind of what this is all going here. Some of you might be thinking, when is the rabbi going to bring this back to what he's reading here in Ezekiel? This is bringing it right back. This is what Yahweh's talking about. These guys who are teaching are basically saying, Yahweh said this stuff that we would rather do instead of what he said, he's actually okay with that. That's what the Yahweh's all mad at here. He's saying, look, I never said that you can bend my word to meet your desires, to twist it to meet what you wanted to say. Oh, but man, I'll tell you what, you get behind a microphone and you get into ministry for a while and you have a congregation you're responsible for, and I'm not just talking about you guys, but like people who are watching this that will call me up from wherever they are, and I can't tell you on a daily basis how many contacts I will get from people that are trying to get the word to say what it doesn't say so they can justify what they want to do. And then they get mad at me because I won't tell them it's okay. They do. Now I'm the ogre. That rabbi, he says, blah, 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 control freak. I'm just saying, no, I'm sorry. The book he did not allow for what you want. Don't get mad at me. I'm reading it to you. I'm just telling you what it says. But you're going to get mad at me because you don't want to get mad at him. So you'll blame the messenger instead. It's okay. I'll take it. If you want to do that, it's fine. It's the job he put me in. But you're not being honest with yourself. The reality is you need the verse to say what you need it to say because it allows you to do what you want to do. Somehow we have to get to that place where I have no dog in the hunt. I've got no agenda. I've got no preference. It's just what he said. Because all of this comes back to people rathering, preferring, and having their own agendas that gets them in all this trouble. And so they're trying to find a way to justify that which is actually not justifiable. And that's the spinning and the bending. And that's where this is the divining the lie. Now we're going to get back to what Ezekiel said. That essentially is what I believe it means when it says divining a lie. Taking what Yahweh said, reinterpreting it to your own advantage, and then putting it forth to other people. I'll say that again. I believe that when he's talking about here, when it says spoken, divining lies for the people, and they've spoken a divination of lies, I think what they're doing is they're taking what Yahweh said, and they're twisting it and bending it to their own advantage of what they prefer for themselves, and then selling it to the people. That's what I think he's talking about here. You don't have to agree. Pray about it, study it, etc. But let's understand that when he says, my hand shall be against the prophets who see falsehood and who divine lies, when I say see falsehood, well, they're reading the word and they're seeing it not the way it says. When they're seeing permission to do that which it says no, or they're seeing that you should be doing something that shouldn't be doing something that says yes, that's falsehood. They're seeing falsehood. Oh, yeah, over here, yeah, it says this. Yeah, I guess it's okay if you do that. Oh, no, it says over here, I guess look, that whole Melchizedekian thing out there, and I will teach against this at some point. All that does is feed into a Christian mindset almost only out of Paul's writings, the way they put it, to say there's less Torah for you to have to do than what it actually says. That is, I'm going to give you the whole essence in like 2 seconds. That whole teaching is to tell you don't have to do all of it. That's all it is. It's an argument in case, which they believe they make a plausible argument in case that not everything that Yahweh said you actually have to do. That it was only for a period of time, and then what Yeshua did is freed you from that piece of it. That's the spin to justify the people who don't want to do everything. I'm sorry, but me personally, I don't find a single thing anywhere in here that Yahweh said offensive to me. In other words, there's nothing that he says to do or not do that, generally speaking, I would say, that offends me. I don't like it. I don't want it. I hear teachers out of that whole Melchizedekian thing saying, oh, well, I never liked wearing tzitzit because, after all, the tzitzit thing comes after. That's one of those things that they believe is done away with. I take great joy in putting on my tzitzit every day. I would feel completely naked without putting on my tzitzit every day. And I would never find it comfortable to have, and by the way, I know some of the people that are teaching this stuff, and they used to be very happy to teach everybody, and they were very proud to wear their tzitzit, and they're lying to everybody saying that they never liked it. Because they're either lying now or they were lying then. Doesn't matter to me. I know that they said that they were very excited and proud to do all the Torah and to even wear the tzitzit, and now they're telling everybody they never did. So one of them is not true. They can't both be true. Either you liked it back then and you're lying now, or you didn't like it back then, you were lying then. Because the person didn't say, well, I used to like it when I wore it now, but I prefer this. No, he said, I never liked it. Even back then when I did it, I never liked it. Really? That's not the impression I got when I knew you before. Understand that's what we're talking about here in Ezekiel. It's exactly what's going on today. You've got lots of people out there leading lots of people into very dangerous places. Because let me tell you something. It would be very scary for me. Let's say I thought that I saw in here that there's some stuff you don't have to do anymore. That would scare the life out of me to share that with you, because if I'm wrong, boy, are we all in trouble. As far as I'm concerned, Yahweh said it, it's good forever. And see, I've got a very simple way to deal with that. And I can deal with this deals with the whole Melchizedekian thing that these guys have out there, that, you know, everything after the golden calf was the laws against us and all this other nonsense. Real simple. Does Yahweh change? No. If he says something's right, can it ever be wrong? Okay, so all the things he said to do, like wearing tzitzit, can never be wrong to do. If he said it, it's right forever. And if anything he says is wrong, can it ever be right? No. So anything that was wrong to do you cannot now start doing it. Because they'll say things like kashrut to some degree, because kashrut's Leviticus 11. That comes after the golden calf. Oh, but then they'll spin and say, oh, but there's some hits in kashrut previous to, Mount Sinai, stop spinning this thing. Stop trying to figure out, I can't tell you, it hasn't happened in a while, but it used to be year after year, people come up to me and say, as they were coming out of the churches, I'm just trying to figure out how much of the old transfers into the new. Everything? It's not hard. Because they're like telling me how they're studying and struggling to see how much of the old actually carries forward. All of it. Stop struggling. It all carries forward. The only difference between the old and the new, and that's not even in the new, the only difference between the old and where we are now is that there's some things you can't do. I didn't say you shouldn't. I didn't say that they're no longer necessary. I said there's some things that you can't do now because there's no temple. Without a temple and without a priesthood in the temple, forget about a priesthood outside the temple. I'm saying without a temple being manned and served by priests, there's a bunch of things you can't do right now. But other than that, everything is still valid. Now, I can't tell you. Julie will tell you that. Remember, they used to come up all the time. I'm trying to figure out, how much of the old transferred forward into new. All of it. And don't kid yourselves. This is for all those people that don't understand this. The apostles, every one of them, all the way until 70, when the temple was destroyed, all went to the temple and all made sacrifices after Yeshua died and was resurrected. So let's just understand that whole thing about Yeshua somehow eliminating and wiping that all out, that's not right. And by the way, I was just watching last night an interesting teaching by Rico Cortez where he was talking about the veils. And let's just get this also clear. Did you know there's more than one veil on the temple? A lot of people didn't know that. Do you know which one was rent in two? I got news for you. It wasn't the one in the Holy of Holies. It wasn't the one that was in front of the Holy of Holies. It was the big 60-something foot one that would have been seen even from the mount where he was crucified, and that one was rent in two. And that's a much more outer part of the building. So for everybody who wants to say, oh, we don't need priests or teachers anymore because, after all, the veil was rent in two so that we could have direct access now, that's not the veil that was torn. Isn't that a shocker for some people? A lot of people don't even know there was more than one veil. I think there was 4. And so let's just understand all of this stuff that leads to all these things that people are teaching, and then we buy into it. Because we've been all told, have you not all been told that Yeshua was the last end-all, be-all sacrifice? We all heard that. Not scripturally true. Sorry. When you read Ezekiel and you read about the third temple that's coming, it's going to be sacrifices. Oh, that's just for those evil sinner people that are going to learn and everything. No, it's going to be for everybody. Everything Abba does is for everybody if you want to be in his covenant. All covenanted people are required to do all the same things. When you read over and over, there's one law for everybody. That's everybody in the camp. Now, the proselyte who wants to be in the camp, he's required to do this stuff too, because after all, he's trying to become part of the camp. There's only one law. It's for everybody in the camp. You don't want to be in the camp, do whatever you want. Outside the camp, it's free for all. Of course, outside the camp doesn't have a forever kingdom to look forward to. Outside the camp, we might as well eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, because that's all you got. Not a problem. You want to go live life to its secular, fleshly fullness and just die and have nothing to look forward to? You're welcome to be outside the camp. That's what they're all doing out there. We are looking forward to a forever. We want to spend forever with the Father and the Son. We're looking forward to that group, and that group lives in a place that has rules. They have community living rules. They've got interaction and relationship rules. They've got all kinds of protocols, and that's why we're learning this stuff, because that's going to be how that place is run. If you want to be there, in my Father's house is many rooms. Yeah, guess what? In my Father's house is house rules. Yeshua didn't say that. He said the first, but the other part is part of it. Anybody live in a Father's house that didn't have his own rules? Anybody ever never heard the sound, as long as you're in my house, you live by my rules? If you didn't hear it, I know you said it. At some point, you say that to your children. They get to be teenagers, and you go, you're going to live in my house, you're going to live by my rules. That's universal. Literally. Because our Father's house has rules. But we have, unfortunately, people out there trying to teach that the rules aren't exactly the way he said it. And they are filtering it and divining lies. Wow, and I thought I was going to do like 3 different chapters today. I'm not even going to finish this one. Where am I? Verse 10? Yeah. Okay. Well, let me read verse 9 again, because this is really key. So my hand shall be against those prophets who see falsehood and who divine lies. They shall not be in the council of my people, nor be written in the record of the... They're not even going to be written in the record of the house of Israel. And they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and shall know that I am the Master Yahweh. See, when it says, and they shall know, understand that knowing comes in the punishing. In other words, they're not going to know until this all happens. But when it all happens, they're going to know, oh, he really was in charge. And I really had no authority to do what I did. Because if they really knew that he was Yahweh, they would stop doing this. So this verse at the end is saying, when all of this plays out and they don't get to enter in and they don't get to be written in the books, then they will know that I wasn't playing games. That I wasn't kidding, that I am the Master Yahweh. Verse 10, because they have led my people astray, saying, peace, when there is no peace. And when one is building a wall, see, they are coating it with whitewash. Say to those who coat it with whitewash, it shall fall. There shall be flooding, rain, and you, O great hailstones, fall, and a stormy wind breaks it down. And see, the wall shall fall. Shall you not be asked, where is the coating with which you coated it? Okay, so here, before we continue, understand this whole coating with whitewash thing. And we could go to Matthew 23. We might in a second here to kind of cover this, where he says, you whiten sepulchres, okay? And we know in Ezekiel 22, he's also going to talk about, when we get to 22, he says, you coat it with whitewash, divining a lie for the people, okay? These things are talking about the idea of putting a spin and telling everybody everything's wonderful. They're putting a layer of paint or whitewash over something. In other words, all they're doing is taking the graffiti that's on the wall and just kind of covering it up. It's still there. It's still there. They didn't scrub it away, but they're covering it up. Put a coating on it. And he's saying, look, where's that coating with which you whitewashed? In other words, obviously that didn't help you. You thought that was going to deliver you and save you. After all, you covered it all up. Everything was fine now. We all look good. See, people always feel like as long as I look okay, I'm okay. As long as everybody thinks I'm okay, it doesn't matter if they don't know what I'm doing back home by myself in my private time when nobody sees what I'm doing. Or what you're doing at home with your family, or the fact that you may be beating your wife or your kids or whatever else you're doing, or the fact that you're stealing at your job, or the fact that can I go on and on? Things that are done quietly and privately that you don't think anybody knows, because all they see is what they see. How many times have we seen on the news some crazy person goes out and does some crazy thing, hurting and killing a lot of people, and then all their neighbors go, oh, I don't get it. He was the nicest, wonderful, he was an A student, he was on honor roll, and he was, right? We can put on a pretty good show. That's what this whitewash is, That's what this whitewash is. How many of you have had pastors they were one way in front of that mic and when they walked around church, but boy, if you ever saw them outside, not the same person. Some of them aren't even the same person when they walked away from the mic and started mingling in the crowds. Now, I'm going to admit, I'm a lot rough around the edges, but I'm the same way here now at my house everywhere else. And people that have been to my house and know me long enough to know, you're getting the same thing no matter where. At least, now that doesn't make that great. I'm just saying that at least that's an honest and, thing that I'm going to give you what's out is me all the time. But you know what? There's still stuff you don't know. Stuff that goes on when you're not around. And I'm not saying that's all horrible and evil. I'm just saying all of us have stuff that goes on when we don't think that anybody's looking. And then we cover it with whitewash by putting on this show in front of everybody else. But we all have our private stuff. But he knows all. He sees all. You can't fool him. So when he's talking about this, he's saying, look, listen to this again with verse 10, just this piece of it. These people that are divining lies and falsehood, their motivation is in verse 10. It's to tell the people peace when there's no peace. They're trying to please and tickle ears. They're trying to encourage and tell people they're okay when they're not okay. They're trying to tell people there's peace when there's no peace. Oh, no, that's okay what you're doing. Don't worry about it. It's wonderful. He understands. Oh, my gosh, how much horrible things have been done in the name of, oh, it's okay. I'm sure God understands. I'm sure Yahweh understands. I'm sure Abba understands. Yeah, he does. He understands that you're doing what you want and not what he wants. He understands. Oh, and people would say, the other side of that, or another way of saying that is when people say, oh, well, he knows my heart. Yeah, he does. That should scare you. He knows that your heart is to do what you want in that particular moment and not him, but you're trying to justify that somehow your heart is to please him while you're doing your stuff. How is he supposed to think you're pleasing him when you're doing it your way and not his way? Oh, but he knows my heart. Yeah, your heart, you just proved your heart is on you and not on him. Because you chose you over him. How do we justify that? How do we work with that? He said, verse 13, therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh, I shall break down with a stormy wind with my wrath, and with a flooding rain in my displeasure, with great hailstones and wrath to consume. And I shall throw down the wall you have coated with whitewash, and bring it down to the ground, and its foundation shall be uncovered, and it shall fall, and you shall be consumed in the midst of it, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. And its foundation shall be uncovered. So let's take this back into the same metaphor we've been using all the way along. What is the foundation of the whitewash? I. Me. In other words, it's going to be totally knocked down to expose that what's under all of this, the foundation of all of this, is I really didn't want to do all that stuff. So that's why I spun it and gave the divining of lies. Because under all of this, the foundation was I really didn't want to do what you said. So the foundation is going to be exposed that I really didn't want to do that. I really wanted to do whatever I did, and I don't care that you said no. I really wanted to do that. Isn't that the foundation? He's going to tear down everything down to that foundation so that you can see that he knows what's really been going on. Because you think he doesn't. You think you're pulling a fast one. Just like children always do to their parents. They always think their parents don't know. And the parents are sitting there going, and then the kid gets busted, and the kid's like, I can't believe. And the parent's like, I knew this all along. I saw you. I knew. But we think we can get away with things. We haven't grown up. We're just like little children. We think we're getting away with something. Right? We got to stop playing with this. And I'm speaking to myself, all of us, to some degree, no matter how much effort we're putting in, we're still playing with it on some levels. We are zealously committed on other levels, and we are strong and committed and actually doing it exactly as he expects. But on other levels, there's still stuff but I really don't want to let that go, and I really don't want to stop doing this, or I really want to do this, and he said no, or whatever it is. Or something he said to do, and this is still why people are not tithing. They just don't want to give, but it's my money. It's not your money. That's already the confusion. It's your money. It's his money. Be happy he lets you keep 90% of it. See, anybody ever study about, we haven't lived in a country like this, but, when there's a king, guess what everything belongs to? the king. Your land, your crops, your life, everything belongs to that king. Well, guess what? We have a king, and he's coming. So don't tell me it's my house, it's my life, it's my money. It's not yours. I had to tell this to my children. My children are fighting over something. And one child will say to me, but that's mine. I say, no, it's mine. I'm the king in my house. Everything in that house belongs to me. But it's mine. No, it's not. You're allowed to have it. I let you use it. And for purpose of argument, yes, it belongs to you for possessing it and for caretaking it. But when you're fighting over it, it's mine. And if I tell you to share it with your brother or your sister, whatever it is, then I am in charge because it really is mine. You are only allowed, you're under my benevolence. If you are the head of the house, everything in that house is under your benevolence, as you see fit. Now, you should be doing it as he sees fit. Am I making sense? But understand that metaphor, take it the other direction, take it up. He owns everything, including you. 1 Corinthians, do you not know that you were bought with a price? That you are the temple of the living Elohim, that you are bought and paid for? I believe that's chapter 6. You're bought and paid for. Don't tell me it's mine or yours or whatever. I'll say this is, but it's mine. No, it's not. That's a lie. That's a delusion. Be happy he lets you play with it for a while or spend it or whatever it is to enjoy it for a while. It's not yours. I'm just stating the facts. But we have a wrong mindset, a wrong approach. We're filtering all this stuff in the wrong way. Because we've convinced ourselves it's mine. You know when the proof will come? When you die, you don't get to take it with you. So much for being yours. You only had temporary stewardship. That's all you had. You know, that's all you had was temporary stewardship. Mine, it's mine. But yet, we don't want to do these things. But he said, look, I'm going to bring it down to the ground, and its foundation shall be uncovered. It's other verses where he talks about whatever's hidden I will expose. I'm going to bring it to the light. Part of why life is so tough right now for some of you, probably all of you, is because he's uncovering some of your foundations, and it ain't fun. I know that's not proper English, but it's just not fun. He's got to tear that down. Why? So he can lay a proper foundation, a foundation that's Messiah, so they can then build up the house properly. Some of us, what we're trying to do is build a house on a bad foundation. The sand or whatever it is, right? So we're building the house on a bad foundation. Like the verse talks about, a builder counting the cost and then building that house and building it out of brick or out of straw, building it on a firm foundation. But there is no other foundation you can build on except Messiah. Well, guess what? Some of us have a mixture. There's some Messiah and some of me. You got to get the me part out and let it all be Messiah. Get that I out of it. It's not part Messiah, part me. You guys aren't a team collaborating on this deal. Get you out of the way and build it all him. It's easier said than done, I know. But we need to get ourselves out of the way and build this foundation, make it him. Because he's uncovering that the foundation still is in him. That's what he's showing you. You keep building that house up, and that's where we get frustrated. We feel like we're getting forward. We feel like we're having success. We feel like we're actually building up and getting somewhere, and then the whole thing goes shh, and you get exposed to show that you're still building a mixture. It's still part you, part him, instead of all him. Hopefully this is kind of making sense to somebody, that is kind of getting in and realizing, oh, so that's what's been going on. That's what he's been doing here. The house keeps getting built, but I feel like I'm going back to square one. Well, because at square one, you make that first square all him instead of part him, part you. But I don't know how to do that. I know, pray. Ask him to help you see how to do that. Then come and get leadership to help you see that and work through whatever it is. That's what leadership's there for. Of course, be careful that you're not going to a leadership that has the same agenda you have that's just going to feed into your own desire for it to be a certain way that you like it to be. Because I promise you, whatever preference you have, you'll find a teacher that's going to feed right into that preference. So as a matter of fact, it's probably good that I rub you the wrong way. You don't like when I'm reading the word this way, because maybe that's because it goes against somebody feeding into your agenda. Maybe that's a good sign. Instead of running away from it and kicking and pouting, you should maybe embrace that and say, maybe that's why I'm supposed to be in this congregation or listening to this stuff on live stream, whatever it is, because he is getting into the core and cutting through with the knife, and it hurts, and I don't like it, but it's going to work. You know, it reminds me of my daughter many years ago had I don't know what it was, like a pimple on her knee, but it got infected. It wouldn't just like a normal pimple get big and just pop itself, whatever. It got to where we had to go to the emergency room. And they actually had to lance it. They had to cut it open. And she was all worried about it hurting and everything, but it already hurt because it was really busting and swollen and her whole knee hurt. I said, it's going to hurt when they cut it. I said, but then it's going to feel so much better after it's cleaned out and all that yuck gets out. And when they cut it open, they had to squeeze all of that stuff out. And some of you feel like he's squeezing all that stuff out of you right now, and it's no fun. So basically, what did I just say? We're all a bunch of giant, ugly pimples. Oh, I know that's going to end up like an in focus or something, you know. We're all giant, ugly pimples. But seriously, he's cutting the ones that need to be lanced open, not just going to pop on their own. And then we got to squeeze all of the yucky stuff out of there, else it's going to cause problems. And it goes inside instead of coming out. You have to get it all out. And none of that's fun. It hurts. And she screamed, and it hurt. But you know what? Afterwards, it was all better. Because she was in a lot of pain before any of that was done, because it was starting to really become a problem. So let's understand that this is us. You know, this is us. And he's going to tear us down and uncover that foundation. And you know why? At the end of the verse, it says, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. When he tears you down to that basic spot, you're going to know that he is Yahweh. So I shall complete my wrath on the wall and on those coating it with whitewash, and say to you, the wall is no more, nor those whitewashing it. So again, remember, who's he holding to the highest judgment? Those doing the whitewashing. He says, the prophets of Israel who are prophesying concerning Jerusalem and who are seeing visions of peace for her when there is no peace, declares the Master Yahweh. He says, and you, son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people who are prophesying out of their own heart, and prophesy against them. And prophesy against them. There is more that I want to read here. I think we'll just save it for next week. And we'll finish chapter 13, and I also want to deal with Matthew 23, etc., in relation to this as we continue. But I think that the point, hopefully, was clear in what we're sort of getting out of this for us today, is that this is all about him tearing down our walls, down to our foundation, so that we are understanding where we are buying into teachers that are prophesying and divining lies, because those lies that they're divining feed into our false foundation. And so what will happen is, this is why, remember when I talked about a couple of weeks ago, the idea of having lots of teachers and then bringing it down to eventually having one teacher? And once you have that one teacher who's your teacher, that's not to say you never listen to anybody else ever again. But if that other teacher out there says anything different than your teacher, be careful that you're not tempted to listen to the other teacher, because it feeds into one of your weaknesses in your foundation. Okay, because you will often start liking another teacher because it's feeding into something you feel is missing from your current teacher, because what's missing is that he's not feeding something that's part of the me, I. And so you feel empty and you feel like you need somebody to feed that little beast in there that wants to be fed, to that ego, that pride, that I. And that's where people start saying, well, you know, I didn't want to go there anymore because I just didn't feel like this or that. Well, because it was something that I'm missing. It's about me all of a sudden. And other people will say, whatever it is that you just said you lacked, I get all of that where I'm going. So why don't you get it? Because there's something still going on in that wrong foundation. And so let's be really careful individually, and then as far as the teachers out there, that this is something that Abba is very concerned about, and he's going to call into account. And he's going to bring it to judgment. Why? So that you shall know that I am Yahweh. So you shall know that I am Yahweh. Amen? Amen. Abba, Father, we come before you, and we want to thank you for even the tearing down that you're doing to bring down to the foundations, for caring enough, instead of just discarding us, but to tear us down so you can rebuild us. So we can be built on the foundation of Torah, of you, of Yeshua, that we can be built on that solid rock. But Father, that you would care to sustain us even in the hard and challenging process of being rebuilt and torn down. Father, allow us, with mercy, give us that heart to be willing to let everything go. To take every bit of our own personal agenda and just let it all go. To let it all be you and zero us. So that we can be literally transformed into the image of your Son. Father, we can't do this by ourselves. We need your help and your strength, your encouragement, and your inspiration and guidance through the Ruach HaKodesh. But we also understand and accept that you will not do this for us, that you want us to choose this path and that we have to submit ourselves to you, which means to allow you to win whenever we are in conflict with our desires, with your desires. And I know I didn't mention this during the teaching, but Father, we all know that in true submission, it is done joyfully and not kicking and screaming, whining and complaining. That has to all go. If what you want and what I want don't match, I need to let you win, and I need to let you win joyfully and with a smile and not kicking and frustrated and upset. Father, but we can't do this without your help. Fill us with your presence. Fill us with your spirit. Give us the encouragement, the chazak, 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 strength to be strengthened. Okay? We need to be strong, be strong, be strong, and v'nitzazik, may we be strengthened. And what are we strengthened by? Your word, by your presence, by your ruach, by your Son. Help us to truly be encouraged and strengthened by all these things. So, Father, we come before you now, trying to embrace the words that you spoke through the prophet Ezekiel, and so that we may embrace them in our lives today. And so we come before you in submission now, asking and seeking in the name above all names, the name of the King of all kings who is coming to rule here on the earth, and that, Father, to lead and rule in the forever kingdom, your Son, Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen ve'amen.